right, here we are, man. Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast for everyone out here. This is our first episode. My name is Sean.
And I'm Fitz, and we're basically your hosts. And this podcast is about freelancing, business, creative stuff, and everything in between, kind of. So, yeah, Sean, what is this podcast for you? Because this is episode one, I think we should explain what this is all about. And at least in your head, and then what is it in mine?
Yeah, well, so we've kept this very vague and big, but it's essentially just about creativity right now, creativity in our lives, creativity in the past, and I think it's we're just trying to find a lot of different middle grounds in terms of finding out, what makes people click creatively, what's kind of the future of creativity, and just looking at stuff that really relates to creativity. I know this is kind of our first stab into this kind of new podcast realm of creativity, but yeah, so we're leaving it very open and very big, I
Yeah,
think.
for me, this is like kind of a big thing because like back in the day when you lived actually down here in Florida, Sunshine State, we actually had like meetups and we were hanging out and we had our coffee meetings and basically talked business and like you're kind of a web designer and you're like full time, you're doing it the right way, and I'm just a content creator who's trying to make it, and I'm basically learning a lot from you. And for me, this podcast is about like learning and like the whole freelance aspect, business, and obviously doing your art, basically expressing yourself, making a dent into the internet and being like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, so I guess to give a little background, kind of like Fitz said, I'm a web designer, graphic designer. Just finishing up 12 years of a career that's bounced me from print design to digital design to print design again, back to digital design, all the way to branding, to web design, to UX and UI design, to now back to web design. So it's been a very long career. Like Fitze said, we used to get coffee down in Florida, and that's kind of where this started. Was our weekly coffee sessions where we would, get a little bit of work done and mostly just do a lot of creative talking and a lot of just planning and plotting. So it's really cool to be back, man. It's cool to be back in the coffee state of mind with you in a
Let's
video.
go. Let's go.
Let's go.
On my side, I'm more the video guy. So, yeah, I basically am a video content creator and do a lot of creative shenanigans. I think I do a lot of things. Let's put it that way. I need to figure out a niche, but right now we're doing this and let's give it all. But basically that's us right now. And yeah, I think like today we should do a little summary what we're going to talk about. We actually tried this podcast like 3 or 4 times. No, 2 times actually. 2 times, and we had some technical difficulties, just how it is, because you're not anymore down here. What you didn't mention, where are you now?
Yeah, well, now I'm in Colorado Springs, beautiful Colorado Springs. So, hopefully going to get down there again. Maybe we'll have a couple live versions of this podcast together. But,
Yeah.
yeah, so in Colorado
Yeah.
now.
So, but basically, the summary that we want to do is like recap what we did on the last episode that never will air probably because of technical difficulties. But we had design of a function, I think, with like the a design of Trump's airplane, or at least the color theme, and how that affect the function. And then also we want to talk about like Fiverr, freelancing, and yeah, stuff like that.
And stuff like that. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, since that first podcast is going to be locked away in a vault, maybe someday will be released on some Patreon or other means. But yeah, we'll rehash some of these things. And yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to start this adventure with you. And here we are, episode
Yeah.
one.
I would say let's give them the summary what happened, because like we don't really want to be like I at least don't want to pick sides now and be over political, because this is a really weird time to be alive where everything is so divided. So I kind of want to preach the gap with some creativeness, but we still should tackle this topic because it's very important and happens all the time. So what happened with that airplane and why did it matter, and break the news?
Why does it matter? Break the news. So, yeah, so so yeah, to kind of just jump into things here, a recent kind of news story that caught my eye is a story about, Donald Trump. We love him or hate him. I mean, we're gonna dive right here. We're gonna get right into
Cut into the
the nice
cheese.
gritty, the nice controversial topics here and creativity. Go somewhere else. If you need 12 best logo design trends, if you need, how I made $1 million as a freelancer in 1 month, this isn't for you. I mean, we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna sludge some mud. We're gonna throw it every direction. So just get ready. And just know that our views are our own. We share all religious views, political views, gender neutrality, all of it. We are people of the people. Okay, so all of you out there, before you blow up our comments, we love you all equally. All right, so to get into it, Donald Trump. He has just released recently, just in the last few weeks, he released his design for the Air Force One plane. And in true Trump fashion, he definitely was considering, what is the brand, the Trump brand, right? How do we make this plane look better than it used to look? So let me see if I can actually share my screen here. Boom.
Oh,
So,
there we go. It's loading
so
stuff.
as you, it's something's loading. So we'll see if this loads in or
Yeah, we
not.
will see in like
But
5 seconds.
yeah, it's looking like it's not loading.
It's all good though.
Hold on 1 second. I think I know why this is happening. So,
Oh, there we
in
go.
true podcast fashion. Okay, so there we go. There we go. Oh God, now it's working. Okay, so the old old Air Force One, it really just looks like what you would think the Air Force One looked like in 1991, right? We have that nice light blue, white, got that nice little golden stripe, but it looks very retro, very
Very
old,
dated.
not very sexy. Now, but yeah, very dated. And so Trump, of course, was like, well, we're going to make this plane really seem like it's part of the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
And so he released his version of the plane just recently, where we have kind of more of a navy dark blue underside, a little bit more regal, has that red stripe instead of that gold stripe.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think it's a step up. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I think it's at least a visual step up. So in that way, I think Trump did a great job. I mean, I think he came in, he was just like, we're gonna really try to make this plane look better. However, that created a lot of problems. And here's where we get to the juiciness of the topic. So after going ahead and showing this paint job,
What looks great
it was
there,
revealed
actually, on that little model, personally.
yeah, it does. It looks pretty good right there. He looks pretty nervous about his design. That's about how I look in some of my weird critique meetings. I have that same exact stance. But yeah. So it's overall, yet again, I think it looks good. However, it created a lot of issues with the engineers where they said, now that it's dark blue on that bottom side instead of the light blue, it's not reflecting enough sunlight now. So now a lot of the instruments will most likely fail.
Yeah.
Also, usually when these planes are built, the paint is one of the last things usually that are put on the plane, which makes sense. However, with Trump being part of this project, he wanted to market this throughout the process, so the painting was one of the first things they did. And so now they have possibly a multi-$100 million problem on their hands where they have this plane that will not function for what it needs to do.
Just because of
And
paint.
so that gets to the meat of the topic of, aesthetic being over the actual function of it can create a lot of problems down the road. And I know I've been in a lot of meetings, I'm sure you have, Fitze, where you've had to defend the design before the function, but then there's a lot of times you kind of have to take a step back
Yeah.
and listen to the engineers, listen to the developers, listen to the people that are giving you stink about an idea, because now look at it. Now they have $100 million problem on their hands. Even if the design looks good, the function isn't
Yeah.
there.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because let's say you did something, no matter what it was, and you get feedback, and the feedback is not what you want it to be, because obviously you think your design is great and it may be great, but for the client it's not addressing the pain points. For example, let's say you did a video, you didn't display certain aspects or family members in a wedding video, for example. But if you would do, it would break the flow or whatever it is in design terms. Basically, you kind of have to communicate with the client and be like, hey, I made this because this flows better, this looks better, or it does the job. How do you address the whole situation there with like, how do you communicate your pain points or what you want to get across with the client? What is your approach?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, this is an interesting case study too, right? I mean, who's the client in this case, right? Donald Trump and at the time the US government, right? So this is Boeing who had to go after this like multi-billion dollar contract to make these two new Air Force One planes. And
There's
so
a lot of money on the
so this one's
line.
interesting, right? So you know that they early on probably were telling Trump and his team a lot of the issues and a lot of the constraints and things like that. And it sounds like it went on deaf ears. And not only that, I think it's a good example that even Boeing has to bend over sometimes and kind of give in to the client because it's such a big client.
Competitive
It's
market.
such a process that they're exactly. So it's interesting. So in this case, yeah, I think early on, I would have definitely started from what are the requirements and worked our way back. I definitely am a content first type of designer. I think the design should always kind of wrap itself around the content, not the other way around. And so in this case, I think they probably did say some of these things, but it's a very interesting thing that even a big company like Boeing can get caught in a situation where the client's dictating what happens and leading everyone off the cliffside.
Yeah. On that note, obviously you should prepare beforehand. But yeah, some gigs are basically too good to pass on, and you're basically trying to cut corners, and that will cost you dearly because like they have now the same problem as we small creators or medium, however you want to describe yourself. Um, they have the same problems as we do, and there's probably a couple of things you can look out for so that you can avoid that. Like the last time we talked about it, 5 signs for a good client, for example, and we should talk about the whole process, how you can like filter certain things out and make sure smooth sailing is going on.
Yeah. So I think to kind of just jump into yeah, I mean, so when filtering out clients, I mean, it's really about like listening and I think empathy early on, right? So I think in this case, I would guess I don't know this for a fact, but there wasn't very much listening, I think, on the client side early on.
Yeah.
Now it's very difficult for for you to know that very early on. Sometimes people put their best face that first meeting, and it's really hard to kind of know
Yeah.
and judge. So you really have to be a detective a little bit. You have to. It's like going on your first date. You kind of are trying to pick up on the red flags, and you can't be blinded by your love and your kind of passion to make this work. You have to definitely create those boundaries and don't be afraid to pull the emergency brake. I think that's something that I've ran into in multiple projects where I get so ahead of myself wanting something to work, want this relationship to work, that I kind of forget all of the rules of engagement. I kind of forget all the things that I need. And so it's kind of that balance from the very beginning. You got to balance the fact that maybe they aren't the perfect fit and maybe the things that you want are more important than just getting a new
Yeah,
client.
on that note though, talking about this airplane again, because like if you would be Boeing and you would know Trump, branding is very important. And I immediately would know bold colors, like you probably have like a color scheme in your head that he wants right now. It's like there's not too many
Mhm.
options and they should have known and they should have kind of be like, can we do this? And if they're like,
Mhm.
encouraging that, then yeah, they should also stick to it. But obviously, they can't now and have to pedal back.
Well, exactly, and I think that's the most awkward situation, right? I've had a couple times where I've gotten situations just like this where I've ended up being like, okay, all right, we'll do it your way, roll over, and then fast forward, and then I'm the one now angry at the client. Now I'm the one that's too far past my limits, and to work back is like so much more unforgiving and not fun than if you just would have created the problem in the first
Yeah.
place. If you would have just been abrasive at the very beginning. Yet again, this is an interesting thing, right? Because we're talking about contracts that have to get approved years before construction gets made. Boeing wants to get this multi-billion-dollar contract. They want to be known for as the plane maker that makes the Air Force One. So so it's a very interesting case study of like where this is definitely a very good job that everyone would want. Like everyone would want that project. And so it's just very interesting though, because now, yeah, now they're in that awkward spot. There's now, I'm sure, lots of awkward hand-wringing kind of meetings between the engineers and Trump's team and whoever's doing the budget oversight on this. So it's just really fun. It's a good example yet again of just start with the function, work your way back from there. And if the client's not listening, then don't be afraid to pull the e-brake. Don't be afraid to stop the whole process if you have
Yeah.
to.
On that note, though, because like I like really the idea like the design is more important than the function. What do you think about that, though? Because like obviously you could argue it's just a color. It's running a little bit hot because it's or no, not hot, or it's not functioning that well, but it's still flying. You know what I mean? Clearly, there's some downsides to it, but you made your statement. What would be good for him, but it would be bad for the future president who's flying in that thing in an emergency situation.
Well, yeah, that's what's kind of interesting about this, right? Is we're talking about an ego in a way, right? I mean, so Trump's like, I want to be known as the guy that's made this beautiful plane. However, he may never ride in the plane.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting thing where his aesthetics endanger future presidents type of thing. And yet again, I'm not being political. I don't know if you love Trump, you hate him, that's fine. But it's an interesting.
It's easier to spot in the sky. That's basically in a nutshell, So it's an unbiased opinion, It's like you can see it easier because it's like too dark versus the baby blue, just like
Yeah, that's a good point too. Exactly. So baby blue, there's lots of reasons for it. It reflects light. It kind of hides itself in the sky more. Where now this plane will stick out. So yeah, even on a safety level, it's now less safe. It may not function correctly. So it just, yeah. So it's funny because I've been here before where you get stuck now that you've gotten this far, it's like, dang, you really have to just go back now and spend all this money to undo all the mistakes. And so yeah, so it's good to see this on a high level. I think a lot of young creatives, they run into this and they feel like it's unique to them just being young creatives and not knowing what they're doing. But, I think this is a good example that this can happen to a big agency. This can happen to you years and years into the game. I know it's as recently as happened to me a couple times.
Yeah, we should make it like a quick example. Like, for example, I personally think, like, let's talk web design. You want them really high-res videos playing in the background, That's now it loads forever, The function is not anymore there. You will lose people because they don't want to wait till your website fully loads and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, web design's a great example because it really is very, very, very dependent on the thing working and working well. So aesthetics are, while important, can be, yeah, like you just showed a good example. It could be detrimental to the whole website. I think video too. I mean, a good example of video is you using a lot of like flashy transitions and all these different types of animations and graphics when the videos for older senior citizens or something where they're like
they don't like
you're
it,
confusing the audience, so this video doesn't work, and so yeah, there's a lot of that, right? Because I think I see a lot of creatives, especially young creatives now, they go out, they get a new project, right? I got to design a logo. What's the first thing they do? Google logo trends. Google what's a cool logo. And that's not gonna, I just like in this case, maybe Trump Googled what's a cool plane look like. And it's not gonna solve the problems, right? And it actually create big problems because now you're not thinking about like what this logo needs to do. You're just thinking about what's a cool logo look like.
Yeah.
And if you come from it that angle, it seems easy at the beginning. It's the mirage of easy, but give it a month or two down the road and you may be kicking yourself in the butt about, oh my God, this logo doesn't do anything it needs to do. This website doesn't load and this video is scaring away the people it's supposed to attract.
Yeah, but right now I want to be devil's advocate because like talking about logos and design and all those things, and clearly there is a a way that is like, yes, I want to have those bold colors, and they need to be there. There's like performance airplanes, or like, how do you call that? Those air shows where they fly the jets and do really cool stuff. Being like a little bit
Yeah.
extravagant. And sometimes you get away with that stuff. And there's a time and place for bold statements, bold designs. And there's also
Hmm.
time for like quick and easy. And that brings me now to Fiverr. Because like not everything has to be 5 years in the planning, and sometimes is better to be quick done and move on and get stuff running. So how do you deal with that? Because we are very different people in that aspect, where I'm like, okay, I hired somebody on Fiverr. Sean is like, how dare you? Give me the scoop, how you deal with that, and what is your point of view of that? To switch
Okay.
topics.
Yeah. No. I think, and just to be clear, like I am not against the idea of subcontractors. I use subcontractors on my jobs. I use assets sometimes so when I was younger, I feel like I was one of those designers that was like, everything I do, I need to create by hand. Everything needs to be manually made by me. And sometimes, I will be honest, sometimes I'm still that way. But so I just want to be clear. I'm not against
There's a
subcontractors. I am not
spectrum.
against hiring other people. But big but, I think a lot of creatives, including myself, are not huge fans of Fiverr because it's a race to the bottom type of thing. And while it's probably the best thing for your layman, mom and pop business owner, maybe some kid starting a Twitch channel, maybe it's good for these people that don't have these huge, humongous budgets. My idea of Fiverr, though, is it's very rapidly devaluing a lot of the creative fields very quickly. And it's teaching a vocabulary to people that people like you and me now have to deal with, right? I can't tell you how many meetings now we're talking about, well, why don't we just use a template? And why don't we just use this thing that's already been made? And that's yet again not against using things that have already been made and things of that nature, but if we start to devalue things, literally the name of the company is Fiverr, $5. Now, granted, I know that not all the things are $5, but they're pretty cheap,
Yeah.
right? If you do a web design search on there, most of the options are $100 or less, right? And that there's no plausible way to give you a custom, amazing product with $100. They can maybe fool you. They can maybe be like, "Hey, look at this thing that looks custom."
Oh, I have, but like I said, I'm the completely opposite. I'm like, sometimes I should plan more and put more time in. The logo I made for this podcast, perfect example. I was like, I promised Sean, I'm gonna get the pictures, put them together. I have a vision, and I just like bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, it's kind of done. It's not perfect. There's obviously a lot of things that I would like to change, But I'm like, for an hour or 30 something minutes, this is the best I get for that. And does it make sense now to, make it a 2-week project, Right now,
Well,
you see, should I have gotten it quick and easy, or should I put like a lot of time into it? So there's like, I'm the fast guy. This has to be well thought through, And this podcast is sorry for still interrupting.
oh, you're good.
This podcast,
You just got me
yeah,
passionate.
no, this podcast is basically putting you in the fast lane and putting me a little bit on the slow lane, because now we have to work together, and we are like kind of opposites in that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, to kind of relate this to what we were just talking about, right? Like, yeah, could I come up with a plain paint scheme in about 10 minutes? Sure.
Would you though?
Yeah.
Would you?
Would that cause problems in 2 weeks, where that plane now has cost us millions of dollars because of that 30-minute quick and done paint scheme? Yeah. Could a logo that we spent 30 minutes on seem cool and awesome and really, good use of your time at the beginning? Sure. But in a month or two, when it's just like, man, it looks like garbage.
Yeah.
Then it's like, dang it, we have to go back and we have to spend that time anyway.
Yeah.
So, not say that your logo looked like garbage. Your logo looked pretty good. So
It's more about the idea,
like,
but yeah.
you
Now,
know,
now I want to know though
what
what you want to improve on, because like the concept of the logo was like get a circle, and the circle is another circle. It shows the infinitive universe, and in the middle is just us looking like dope.
Yeah, well, and and for all you at home, this is a good example of the video guy in this project coming up with a logo and showing it to the brand designer on in a project. So of course I'm gonna go in and be like, I don't know, hmm. So it's kind of set up that way, right? If I came up with like, oh yeah, I came up with a promo for our podcast and showed it to Fitze, I'm sure he wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, that's
I
perfect,
know.
go with that. No, I'm sure he would have some feedback, like, yeah,
Yeah.
um, so to kind of bring it back to Fiverr though, and I'm not against easy, and I'm not against quick. I'm constantly kind of telling people that like easy is easy. So it's not like I'm against easy. I would love to just be like,
I'm done.
here's a logo, 30 seconds, boom, pay me now. But it just takes time. It just takes time to do really good stuff, and not that you have to create that time. Not like I have a rule that it has to take 2 weeks to design a logo, but I think this is where we differ. Where like I think I'm more into the kind of creative soul of things, and creating this very like this new thing that doesn't exist. Where I think you're much better at understanding like what's the value here,
Yeah.
right? Like what's the actual like financial value, right? So yeah, so if you spend 2 weeks on a logo for a failing business, what's the
Yeah.
value,
It wouldn't
right? So
make
you should be putting
sense.
that time. Yeah, so you're not wrong. I think that's where I think it's funny to see the crossroads of business and creative people. And it can get kind of disgusting sometimes. You see business people try to be creative, aka I'm going to use Fiverr and then claim that I'm a web designer, but I'm actually subcontracting to some guy that's charging me $10 an hour. That's a business guy going into the creative world. And then on the other end, and I think sometimes I've even admittedly been this guy where you have the creative go in the business world and they create all this cost and they create these roadblocks and complexity that doesn't seem to need to be there. And so I think, yeah, so I think we're both right on this, right? Don't spend forever on a logo when you need to be focusing on the thing the logo's for. But also, if you don't spend the time now, you're going to have to
Yeah.
eventually. So it's either do the work now, or in a few months you're going to be like, new logo. So
Yeah, but on that note, yeah, so that is like the big difference I think between us, and like you said, there's a place and time for everything, and I really like this, and yeah, I'm kind of curious though what time limit you put on yourself and how fast you're gonna get that out, because like when we post this episode we need a logo, and we don't have a deadline, and I'm just like, if it's not done is. See how do you deal with this now? What do you think?
well, I mean, we could set a deadline. I mean, I think I think it's it's something that has to get done. It's definitely something but with it being said, I think it's not like, as a designer, I think this is a whole other thing for another episode. I come from a place of empathy,
Yeah,
right? So what you created, it's not going to just be thrown into the dustbin, right? I think you've taken some first steps, and so my thinking is, how do I now improve this,
yeah.
right? How do I take what you did and improve it? So yeah, even with that, it's not like I'm going to be like, he made this, thrown it into the fire, completely new thing. Like, I think a lot of novice creatives do that. It's easier to just come in and destroy what the other guy did and make your own thing.
Yeah.
But it's actually harder to come from a place of empathy and be like, how do I improve Fitze's design?
Also, you kind of have to be self-aware. If you have kids, your kids are the best kids, the prettiest kids. They are like special. But if you're just a different parent, you maybe judge this kid a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like, your own artwork is
Yeah.
always the best in your head. And you have to be aware of that. So I obviously know Sean is a web designer, but I also I just threw that out there. Let's see how he reacts, because like I want to get my shits and giggles out of him. And I like pushing him into like, let's do something fast so we get things done. And I know he does not like it, but I'm fine with like showing a little bit of a lower quality for the faster speed. But I also admire your passion, and I need to step a little bit back and be a little bit slower. So yeah,
Well, yeah, yeah. I think it's a good balance of both, right? I think if you have both, you have the guy that's pushing it forward and the guy that's also digging his heels in a little bit. I think that's a good thing. I think that's not a bad thing at all. And I think yeah, I mean, yeah, this logo is going to be fun, just a fun little example of that
yeah.
happening. But yeah, so no worries. We'll get a logo in the next, year or two.
Well, if the budget is there, we need like another 20 grand, I think.
Exactly. I may need to add on to the contract, increase the scope of work. We'll have to do some, studies and
Yeah.
things.
On that note, though, we're talking about money. This podcast is our first episode. So if you want to become a sponsor and you do something in the creative field and you want to just like hang out, please share, follow, subscribe, or just throw us some money and we mention you and promote your business or whatever you do. But yeah, this is our first podcast. So we're looking for sponsors and advertising as well. Or
like
even
that. Ooh.
even better, if you have a design for this podcast, let's review it on the next, or let's say 5 episodes. If you're like into this type of stuff and you just want to give it a shot, and we just want to critique some designs, because like this is the Infinitive Creative Podcast. I want to see some creative stuff.
The Infinite Creative Podcast. We got to be on brand now on the Infinite.
Yeah, so actually, with the design I made, I broke some rules just because.
Yeah.
but hey, I wanted to do also the Comic Sans as a font, and I'm like, I can't do this. Sean will kill me.
I'll kill myself. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So to kind of, to reiterate what Fitz just said too is, if you want to send anything in, infinitecreativepodcast@gmail.com. Send us anything to that email if you want us to review, if you have anything you want us to look at. We're early on, so we'll probably review just about anything that gets sent to us. It could be a review, it could be a critique, or you could even critique us and get our blood boiling and stuff. That's fun too. So with that being said, yeah, infinitecreativepodcast@gmail.com. And then, but yeah, so I think, no Comic Sans, we're not going to do that.
But it's the most creative.
No papyrus, no, we're not going to use like Arial bold or something. No italic Times New Roman. We're gonna do something nice.
Some nice,
we're gonna,
okay.
maybe just a Google font, but it'll be a nice Google font.
Yeah.
We won't.
Nice. Yeah. On that note, I want to go kind of backwards again, with jumping lanes, because the ADHD is a little bit strong with me, and I really admire your like.
Me too.
Yeah. Thinking in the box, and you're very systematic. And I think like there's a time and place for everything, but I want to jump back to clients and the red flags, because I really like that section that we had in the last podcast, where we basically had a little list with like 5 things to spot a bad client, because I think this would provide a lot of value for our freelance colleagues and just like anybody out there. Want to do the back and
Well, do you want to start?
Let's do the back and forth. I mention a point and you mention a point.
All right.
Now I said something. I should have thought about something. No, first red flag I personally think is like when they ask you, what's your budget?
Really? So when the client asks me, what's my budget as a?
Oh, no. I mean, like when they come in with a low budget. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I was about to say I'm a fan of that actually. Yeah. So I guess incoming with a low budget's not a big deal as long as you communicate it right. I think it's the people that come in and say, "Oh yeah, the world's our oyster. Let's change the world." Whoa! I only paid $5 for Fiverr. You want $2,000 now for a logo? Whoa!
Or infinitive revisions,
Yeah. Or so not having a budget, I would say coming in without a budget is a little bit of a red flag. Not completely, because sometimes I think there's some you figuring that out with them. they don't necessarily know the value of a video or the value of a logo. Um, but yeah, if they're already kind of double speaking, not telling you things, yet again, there's a big red flag. Um, I guess a second red flag for me would be bad talking the last creative they work
Oh,
with. I think so it's very telling if the first meetings you have with someone, they're telling you about that terrible videographer, that terrible web designer, and it's just all negative, especially if they had worked with that person for a while
yeah,
and now there's no compliments. It's all bad. Because guess what? That could be you someday. And, you know, it's just very telling, I think, of people's personality when they're that freely bad talking someone. So that's another red flag, I would say.
yeah. On that note, communication is kind of one for me. If there's no communication or they're being late, like it's a very bad sign. If you cannot communicate, it's a yeah, that
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just being late to meetings and things like that, it's forgivable, but it's something to kind of think about as you go forward. That like, oh well, they were late for the first
so
meeting,
it's not
they
that
were late for the
important
second
for
meeting.
them.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Clearly in their mind, this isn't that important, and so yeah, so you're exactly right. Being on time, communicating, big deal. What's another one? Let's see. Another red flag I would say is the anxiety level. Right? When they walk into the room, when they talk about the mission, whenever is it always chaos? Are they saying like how they've missed this deadline? Oh, they got this. Oh, they're double booked here, this and that. How good are they at managing their time? I would judge that. Are they relaxed? Are they taking notes? Do they seem organized?
Yeah,
Because yeah, if they're coming in hot, they don't have enough time to even do this project, and they answer the phone 8 times in the meeting, and this and that and this and that. Get ready, get on the ride, because that ain't changing once you get on board. That's now your
yeah.
life. Now you get that anxiety. And so there's been a couple clients recently that would have been good money wise, but I said no because they came in so hot and heavy. I was like, I don't want to have to get a therapist after this. I don't want to have to, you know, I don't need to have a stiff drink every night after doing work for this
Yeah.
person. Like, I need to be able to calm down. And this person's anxiety is so yeah, read the room when they come in and they're saying all these things and there's no time to do anything. Maybe don't be part of that project. There's clearly not enough time for you to be in the project.
Yeah.
So,
On that note, it's like a red flag is also if it's not really matching with the portfolio. Like you can read it, for example, let's do the Trump thing. It's a strong, bold statement, and if you're a designer who does not like strong, bold colors, for example, you kind of have to read the room and be like, do I fit in here or do I don't fit in here? That's where I'm like, sometimes you cannot work with an artist or a creative or whatever if you do not like their style. So, but you obviously hear from everybody like he's doing amazing work, but that amazing work might not really fit you because like there's a different, you know
mhm.
what I mean?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a little of both. I think creatives are some of the hardest clients to have. I think for that reason. I've always prided myself in kind of being able to kind of morph for the client, right? And kind of and to morph my style to their style because it's really not about us at the end of the day. It's about not even about them too. So it's half of that, right? You're kind of telling them, I like these fonts and colors, and you like these certain fonts and
But your
colors.
customer,
But it doesn't matter what we like. It doesn't matter what either of us like. What is the guy that's going to give you money like?
yeah.
What is that guy like? It doesn't matter. So it's like,
But on that
kind
note,
of get to
though,
your
it really matters too because you need to still close that client, and we all are not perfect. And our subconscious tendencies weigh in. But yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, I think so it's I think what you're getting at is even past style and aesthetic though. It's almost like, yet again, if you're feeling pushback already, if we're already not really linking up, I like blue, you like red, you like big font, I like small font, I want a quick video, you want a slow video. If we're just like not linking up, just be honest in the beginning. Just be like, you know what, I don't think this is a good match. I can't tell you how many creatives I talk to who are just like, I'm this client, he's a nightmare. I can't believe I got myself into this, and everything I say is wrong, and everything he says is wrong. And it's like, okay, well, you should have seen the signs. Like, clearly, this isn't brand new overnight. You guys agreed yesterday on everything, and today you don't agree on anything. So really, what it was is you were desperate to say yes, and you didn't see the fact that it wasn't a good fit. And so I think that's kind of what you're getting at is like, don't get yourself in a thing where it's always back and forth. It's always me against you. It's like, no, there has to be some coming
Yeah.
together. There has to be.
Now I think how many points do we got already? I think we that was number 5, was it, or was it number 4?
Yeah, we kind of did like 8.
We did like 8. Yeah. On that note, though, that really describes us because we're like a little bit different. But the common ground that we have is like we gotta make a dent into this freelance world and put out some creative stuff. But there's like that aspect of being creative and being a businessman. And the more structured and businessman you are, the more money you make, but the more you need the creative. And there's like it's a weird balance, you know. Like I feel like you're like so organized and like your business stuff is on point. Like I said, you're doing like freelance work since like how many years? 12. You went the old school route with like going to school, getting that debt, and yeah, boy oh boy.
Getting that debt.
Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah.
you know, and here's me just jumping into like a new hobby and moving to a new country and like, oh, I think I've built a bunch of stuff, and then that evolves into a weird thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for all you at home, you could probably tell that Fitze is from the great country of Germany, based off of his his dialect. But yeah, so yeah, and we have these two different worlds, right? And I think your story is becoming more and more common. I feel like the person that is kind of self-made is just decided one day I want to start doing video, and you just went after it. Um, I run into I think I'm almost a dying breed. I feel like
It's rare,
I feel like
definitely.
there's less, definitely very rare, and there's a little bit of I'm a little proud of that, but also a little not proud of that. But yeah, yeah, and I've been freelancing since the beginning of 2019. Before then, I was in agencies and firms. I did that route. I think that's where my organization came from. It was just kind of it was forced upon me being in those kind of places.
It's a good
But
thing,
yeah,
though.
it's
I always admired that. So, yeah.
oh, thank you. Well, I think because I think yet again, it's having both, right? It's having kind of the organization, but then also like the bootstrap mentality, which I think is what you have. You're just like the I don't know, but I'll figure it out, and that's really cool. I think even as an experienced creative, I run into creating obstacles for myself all the time, rather than just like let's figure it out. Like you were saying earlier, if it's not perfect, that's fine. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you kind of almost need a little bit of both, but yeah, I definitely feel like I'm becoming more of a rare bird. There's a lot less of those people that went through college and interned and worked their way into some agency, and I feel like there's a lot more people that they're watching their YouTubes and they're going out to networking things and they're calling everybody in their contact list to figure out some work and I don't think either approach is the right way. I think both could work, but it is interesting. It's interesting because there is two different worlds right
Yeah.
now of creatives.
I mean, on that note, like there are different worlds, and everything, like you said, will work out depending on how much work you put into it. And a good business or a good creative has like some good fundamentals, and you can build on that, and you will see how good your fundamentals are, how tall you grow. If the fundamentals are not really good, you will sooner or later fall or tip and break, you know. But this podcast is about like learning something, so I think like you can hear there's like structure is like a really important thing. You have any tips for like being organized? Because like you mentioned, like you had that early in your career about like organization and they hammered that into you. And I personally think it helped you a lot and it kind of rubbed off a little bit on me, but not enough. So we need some more content right there. So what are your organizational tips for beginners?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
really, I mean that's its own topic.
Then let's put that on another video. How about
yeah,
that?
so this may be something that'll pop up over again and again and again, but I think just I guess my first piece of advice in that world is don't be afraid of being organized. I think when I was a young creative, I painted, I was in a garage band, you know, I remember making skateboard decks as a kid and
Damn,
like
I
and
like
doing little
that.
custom paint jobs on them, and I love the mess of it. And I think a lot of creatives love the mess of it in a weird way. Like it's attractive, the kind of like getting stuff on your hands and
Yeah,
getting
being
things
rough, being
and
unrelatable, being your own thing. There's a
exactly.
romantic
Well,
side of
exactly.
it.
You don't, yeah, exactly. Not having the structure constrict you. And so I know when I was a young creative, like just getting into art school, I I was unattracted to calendars, to-do lists, Gantt charts, all of these blah, taking notes and organizing all these notes and invoices and support tickets
Doing something
and I
on a
just hated it.
schedule, but it makes things easy. It
Yeah.
makes it easy.
But yeah, for me, like I had to get organized because I love creativity so much that I don't think I've had an empty creative plate my whole
Yeah.
life. I think I've always had 15 different things going on. So if I didn't get organized, I was going to drown. And I see it all the time with creatives where they have a million projects that they started the first step and never went
Yeah.
anywhere. And that's where the organization has to happen. If it doesn't, there was just like a moment for me where I realized if I don't get organized, I can't be creative. And so like I may not like to be organized. I may not like to do these like unfun things. I may not want to spend an hour every day being
Yeah.
organized. But if I don't spend that hour, I can't spend the 10 hours being creative.
Here's
So
to that.
so yeah, so it's definitely important. It's definitely something that I I'm proud of, and I really I think it's just a testament of being around other people that are even more organized than me. I mean, I've worked with people that their email box on their Apple is just completely empty all the time. They delete all their messages and organize all the emails as they come in. I've had the people that have literal like cabinets with files for every client. I've had people that have made me seem like I'm loosey goosey and I'm crazy. So it's like being around those people and seeing like the level of their intense organization. Now, granted, they may go too
Yeah.
far, but yeah, just like being around those types of people, it really you start to see like, wow, that's like a different type of intelligence being
Yeah,
organized.
on that note, though, I feel like every creative or businessman needs a good sledgehammer because sometimes we put our rules and obstacles in the way, and you have to be ready to basically take your sledgehammer mentally and destroy that rule. Because, like, if it holds you back or hurts
Yeah.
you, there's like that thing where I should post daily. Some people don't post at all then because they can't post daily, and there's a bunch of rules that we
Hmm.
make up that will hurt us, and I am like, after I realize I developed a tick, let's say, I'm like, okay, no matter
Hmm.
what it costs, I will destroy this tick, break this tick. Because like it will hurt you long
Yeah,
term, Some things are bad and some things are good. And
yeah, and I think that should be baked into the process. I throw a lot of things in the fire quite frequently, Like for example, at the beginning of this last year, I was most of my to-do list type of stuff was in my calendar. And so I was putting everything in my calendar, and so some days would look kind of like a nightmare because they would just be like, stack, 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 10 minutes for this, 15 minutes for this, 30 minutes for that, take a quick break, 20 minutes for this, 1 hour for that. And it was okay. But then I just started seeing like just the I like so this is where like it's interesting because like that worked as an organizational thing because we're talking about time and we're talking about things that need to get done, so it was cool to visualize time, so I could be like I could do a million things today, but then once I put it on the calendar I'd be like there's no
yeah,
way. You have to move stuff, you have to push stuff, so to be like that honest, and I would do that at the beginning of every day. But what I would see though is when I would open up the calendar is I would just get stressed because it's just every day. And so like, and when I would complete tasks in the calendar, there was no crossing it out. It still was there. So there was not even any feedback there of like actually finishing anything. And it always felt like I was constantly behind.
what is
So
not
so
good
what did I do?
mentally
I
too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. And so I switched to like more of a to-do list kind of app where I was like, I was putting all of the things just in this kind of to-do list so I could at least press the little button next to it and have it go ding and go away when I would get something done. However, when I would do that, things would get hidden. I would have these huge lists and things would get
Push
stuck to
around
the
and
bottom or yeah, and so I was like missing things and so then so what am I doing now? I have gone back to square one now. I literally get a piece of printer
the
paper,
listy list.
exactly, and make the list just write in. And it's funny because I've been in a couple meetings recently where people are like, "What the heck are you literally just writing out a to-do list?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because
Feels nice, doesn't
sometimes."
it? Like,
Well, yeah, yeah, and you create. It's weird because we use some of these devices to free us up, but then sometimes they do. They create complexity. It's like we're actually creating more problems with the things that we're trying to use to
yeah, I
organize.
run into that a lot because, like I said, ADHD is strong with me, as you know, but I cannot identify with like certain apps, like how the way they present it. And then I like it for like 2 weeks and then I don't stick to it. And
Right.
then I'm like, okay, what I'm always coming back to is like a piece of paper. And the best thing is this thing has no ads. Like you go onto your iPad, iPhone. Oh, well, this person messaged me. Oh, this is something to watch. Oh, I'm opening the browser to go to an organizing
Right.
app. But I usually type in YouTube and I watch like for 5 hours something. Like old school is sometimes good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's really funny. We live in a really funny time, right? Where we're trying to have technology do
It
everything
makes
for
it
us
so
now.
much
And I think
easier,
we're
but it doesn't.
yeah, everything's great. Like someday I'll just be sitting in the captain's chair with 8 different keyboards and it'll be all doing it for me. And I think yeah, it doesn't work that way, right? And I think it's so yeah, so I think to kind of bring it all back, I think the best thing in organizing is just question yourself. Set one event once a month. Set 1 hour once a month to audit your entire process.
I like that.
Just be like, how does something work? I get a client job today. How would that work? How would I handle that? And like write it down. What are the different pieces? And be like, could this be templatized? Could this be something that's easier? Is there should this be done quicker? Should this be done slower? And just question it.
Yeah.
Question your own process. I mean, I've changed processes nonstop, and I plan to do it for the rest of my career. I think the second you get stuck in a process, you lose sight of the ways to improve the
Yeah.
process.
And
So yeah, so keep improving. But yeah, it's funny though, because improve it, but don't be afraid to go back to the pencil and
yeah.
paper, right? Don't be afraid to like go back to where you were if it's not
Yeah,
working.
talking a little bit motivational shenanigans now because like sometimes you're just stuck in like the procrastination. You're not going forward or back, or you're probably going backwards. You're not feeling great. Sometimes you need those times where nothing is going on to reflect and come up with creative ideas. If you have that space in your calendar, that can be good because like that maybe shows you something is not working. And in the back of your mind, you're working on new solutions, new problems, and everybody's like, oh no, I have to be running and gunning, and you basically run to the bottom because it's not going forward. You know what I mean? And sometimes a little bit free time is a
Mhm.
good thing, even though you cannot really afford it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? I always comment when I like in the freelance world, all news is good and bad news in a really weird way.
True.
I lost a client, that's bad. That's bad news. However, now I have all this
Yeah, what,
time.
what I got
Oh,
to
I
do
just
with
got this big.
that?
Exactly. I just got a big client. I'm going to get all this money. However, now I have no
Yeah.
time. And so I know that I've had to work on even that aspect of like your day's empty. That's okay. Like, maybe now is the good time to look at your process. Maybe now is a good time to clear off your crazily loaded computer like mine. And, maybe now is a good time to just clean the office even. Maybe now is a good time to even look at your outfits and be like, you know what? I kind of dress like a homeless guy to these meetings. Maybe I need to get some better
Yeah,
clothes.
or iron some
So there's
stuff here.
what the heck's an iron? So I think, so yeah, so it's like I've had to teach myself that. I know I even recently, we'll maybe get into this in some other episodes, but just, with COVID and things like that, seeing my revenue just drop out of the sky, just free fall,
I mean, we're now in the
there was a
next
lot.
rabbit hole. The economy is collapsing. There's a lot of stress to deal with. I'm like,
The economy's collapsing.
I never heard about that.
Yeah. This will be great historic footage. But yeah, I mean, yeah, so exactly. So it's like, how do you stay calm in that, right? Like, how do you stay calm if all your clients freeze their budgets, right? I think a lot of people, like you were saying earlier, would spin their wheels, like, I got to work super hard now. Everything's intense. I need to put in 14-hour days. Where it's like, maybe not. Breathe.
Yeah.
Let things settle. Come up with a plan. It's like we're in this battle,
Yeah.
right? It's like we went to battle. You lost most of your troops. Bring them back. Come up with a new plan. Don't just keep sending them out there in a gunfire. Bring everyone back. Let's figure out a new strategy. And I think a lot of people get trapped in this kind of, they just get so desperate that they just start making bad decisions, and then they create this own cycle where now they're trapped in a weird way where it's like, the best thing you can do is to just try to lose fear. Just be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's millions of opportunities. Even if the economy does collapse, there's still millions of opportunities. There's still millions of people that need videos, logos, whatever. Like, so you just have to relax and kind of zoom back out. I mean, I've had to do that, and I would be lying if I said that was easy. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was those nights where I'm staring at the ceiling in bed, like,
Yeah.
how the heck am I going to get through the next month? And I think the thing that's gotten me through that is just zooming out, right? So let's go back to Sean when he's making skateboard decks and painting pictures. You're still doing that. You're still able to create
Yeah.
stuff. So as long as you still can do that, it's all good.
Yeah. For me, like,
Economy can
yeah.
collapse. So
Yeah,
whatever.
on that note, like, I just realized this morning that kind of happened to me. Like, exactly that thing. I'm just like, yeah, video work is slowing down. Some of my friends are like DMing me, same problem. And everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Like, let's experiment with new things, And I'm just like, I kind of started experimenting with those lens holders that I showed you the last episode for my cameras. And I get now more orders in. Like I had yesterday, I made a new listing, I made a new project, and I'm just like, oh, it's already selling. And I'm like, what? I just woke up for some sales. And I'm like,
That's great.
like on the weird note though, clients didn't really hit me up. Everything slowed a little bit down, and I see that trend going on, and I should be worried. Nah, I'm just like maybe I should shift. I'm like, you don't have to fight everything, and that's what I was like realizing this morning. And it's funny that you mentioned it. Like sometimes you just step back and just do other things. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's where someone like you actually thrives, right? I think
I like chaos.
you have that
I
bootstrap.
like it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you thrive in the chaos really well, and I got to say that's like I said earlier, like you have kind of these two types of creatives. You have these old school curmudgeony, like college guy went into the professional world like me, and then you have these kind of bootstrap mentality type of people. And what's interesting is the bootstrap people like you tend to do better with the chaos. It's really funny. Like I see people like me actually fall apart with the chaos. There's plenty of people I graduated with that probably make six figures
Yeah.
now, but if they lost their job, they would be losing.
Yeah.
They'd be freaking out because they're like, what do I do? I'm in the wild.
Yeah,
now.
I would
Now
quit
I'm
just because like I keep a job too long. Like this is a funny story. In Germany, I have a friend, and he basically became a mechanic for cars. And the company hired him to be how do you call that when you are learning a job for 3.5 years? Then you take a test and you become the full-fledged thing.
like apprenticeship.
Yeah, so he went through that, failed, and they put him on another year, and then he finished that, so he got a lower grade job of that type of thing. And he was a slave to this company and still is. He never quit the job. And they kept him. The first thing I did when I was an intern in as an electrician, and I went through my, how do you call it, apprenticeship, went through that. I finished it. I finished it, but I'm like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is move away. Like switch jobs for 1 year from a big company to a small company just to know how it is, And that kind of kept me like, that's my mentally sledgehammer. If I feel like I'm getting too addicted to something, or I'm doing something too often, or I like something too much, just destroy it. It's better.
Just destroy it. That's the German way.
Economy is running up.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting. Even now, and like I said, I'd be lying if I said I don't struggle with it now. I mean, one thing I'm trying to get over as a creative, like here's a real creative moment, is just being okay with things not working out. I think I personally, I know I get stuck in this place where I feel like if something doesn't work out, then it can be a failure. And I get stuck in that. It's a warped perception of like, I think a lot of people in companies believe that too, where they're like let's say you've been working at a firm for 3 years or something, 4 years, and now you and your boss are butting heads all the time, and now he won't give you that time off, and you're digging yourself deeper and deeper and deeper, where now you're the black sheep, and now people don't really want to talk to you, and maybe the team is not really inviting you out to lunch, and let's just say it's now just getting worse and worse and worse. I can't tell you how many people, including myself in the past at some jobs, try to stick it out way too long.
Yeah.
Like, I'm depressed, I'm not fulfilled, but I need this to work because if I leave, it's a
They,
failure.
they,
And and that's such a bad thing to do. And I think what you said, I think gets to that too of like, if you hadn't left there, if you hadn't been like, you know what, this isn't bad, but it's not
yeah.
great, and you didn't have the courage to leave to go find great, yeah, you'd maybe still be there, depressed and just not happy.
So there's the thing or a theory that I have in my head. It's called like failing upwards. Everything has a lifespan. Like let's say you have a company.
Mm-hmm.
That company maybe is not succeeding right now. It gets the peak, and then that peak, then it dies off because it becomes too rigid, whatever. And that is a time span, a timer. And like everything has a different timer. And I think like you should like do something and then jump ship because everything is gonna fail. Like the it sounds like weird, but back in the day, like everybody was like with the what was that thing where it's like wasn't the internet? It was not the internet. Nobody believed in the internet, and then everybody's like retail. Like you got to jump ship at some time, and you jump to the next thing, and from the next thing you jump to the next thing, and you always try to fail upwards versus like sticking with something, and then you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a moment of silence for Blockbuster, right? Um, so it's like that, and I find myself telling friends all the time. I'm right now I'm teaching kind of one of my friends to become a web developer. I'm teaching him code, and I guess the other day one of the guys he works with was like, "What are you doing, man? Why are you spending time learning code? You're doing fine. You got enough money. Everything's working
No,
out."
always reinvent.
And like what I told my friend is like, it doesn't have to be bad for you to get better. And that's what a lot of people kind of lose sight of. They feel like they have to wait for something to break before they fix it. And it's like you don't have to. I mean, you could be loving your job right now. Why don't you keep improving,
Yeah.
right? Like who says you can't pick up a new skill? Who says you can't do new things? So it's like if you can get into this kind of rhythm of like change, like when I was in art school, and you said, "Hey, Sean, you're going to be a web designer," I'd be like, "Oh, a web designer? Yuck!" I would be
Yeah.
like grossed out by it. I'd be like physically ill if you told me
Yeah.
that. And now, what's most of what I do? Web design. And and how did I get here? Some people could argue, "Oh, well, you sold out. You saw the money. That's why you did it." And they're not 100% wrong, if I'm being honest. It's not like
I mean, it's
I went into
life.
web design.
There's always compromise.
Yeah, but I also saw that, like, you maybe don't have it figured out, Sean. I think you're just, you want to make pretty pictures, but there's a lot of beauty in good web design. And granted, and it's like one of the areas that we need more visual people in is web design. It's a world that was, for the longest time, taken over by developers, people that just like to look at code. And so web design sucked for the longest time. And so yeah, so I think it's like just being open to change, right? Like there was that point where you had to be like, I want to do video randomly. I did electrician work, now I want to do video.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid of that, like because you had to do that before to be an electrician. You had to one day sit down and be like, oh, I want to do electricity. Like, so you have to kind of keep that going. I think a lot of people, they do that once or twice in their lives. They get comfortable and then they forget how to do
I
it.
think also
They forget
like
how to
I
change.
think also like that is a dying breed. Nowadays everything is like it seems like everything is spinning faster. Like companies don't employ you for a lifetime anymore. Companies are employing you maybe
Yeah,
twice, 3 times, 4 times. You're like going through a lot of more things nowadays, and everything is evolving
right.
faster. And the more attached you become, the more unhappy you are. Well, it's that kind of
Hmm.
weird because like yeah,
Yeah. No, it is, and I don't think it's going away. I mean,
I think it's getting worse.
I think Yeah. I think so too. It's it's weird. I think yeah, it's weird. Yet again, I think most of the show we're probably going to run into this where there's two different camps, right? So I feel like there's people that are too afraid to change for sure, stuck in their job, never going to leave, never going to question anything. And now we have these kind of new, younger creatives that are I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, I make logos, I'm a model, I also do drone photography, and I also sometimes do some spray paint and
Some
stuff. I'll do
blender.
murals for you. And I do Blender, I dabble in that, easy peasy lemon squeezy, using Fiverr for everything in between. And I think like while creativity, like this podcast will be a good example of creativity can mean a million different things,
Yeah.
and you being creative does give you access to a million different things. I think that's the other camp too, though, is like don't be afraid to change, but don't get obsessed. Don't get addicted to change either. Don't get addicted to trying to dabble in
Yeah.
everything. Try to fall in love. Try to like go 100% into something. I think that's for me as an old curmudgeon designer, that's one of the biggest turnoffs. If someone comes up to me and is like, Sean, I want to learn these things, but then I immediately see that they think it's
Yeah.
easy. I immediately see they want to take shortcuts. They don't actually want to learn it. They just want to add this to their tool belt. I don't really want to teach them anything. I don't really want to show them anything. I've had to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn what I've done, years and years and years, lots of failure, lots of tears, blood, stuff being torn off of the walls, people yelling at me in my face. I've had to go through all of that to get where I am today. So when I run into people that are just like it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, I'll just do it right now and then move on to the next
Yeah.
thing. You're wasting your time. You're playing yourself.
Yeah.
You're never going to be remembered, in my opinion. The people that do that will never be remembered.
Sean is on it. Burn him. Burn
Boom!
him.
Boom!
Yeah. I mean, I see both sides, and there's like, you can see yourself in everything and anything, to a certain degree, I'm more this, more than that. And on that note, I'm like, oh, it is fine to do this, and be like, oh, I just want to dabble in it, but I don't get attached to your experience and past, That's where I'm like because that will bite you then too, But
Yeah. Like I said, there's two different camps. I think there's two different, yeah, there's people that, yeah, I
yeah,
think are too focused on the past work too. And I get caught there too. As I get older, I started to stop myself from doing this, but the whole like, well, I've done this for years and years. Well, and I do, and I am guilty of that. I will admit
yeah.
I've done that
Nobody's
a little
perfect.
too much recently.
Nobody's
A
perfect.
little too much recently. So it is. It's like finding that balance, right? Be that optimistic creative that's like willing to throw everything out the window to do something new, but also respect the
Yeah.
craft. Like if I'm gonna do video, learn it, suffer through it, figure it out, problem solve.
Yeah,
Um,
there's
and don't be
yeah, there's
presumptive.
another thing where I was like thinking, the businessman sees everything like kind of in waves, early adapters, then the common people do it, and then the late adapters, and you always want to know where you are on that curve, and you want to spot the next trend, you want to capitalize on that, the next big thing. With podcasts, we're on the downward trend,
Mhm.
but for example, I'm seeing it as the long-term real estate, because like there maybe will be like kids in the future who will watch this, or will be maybe remembering Sean, like this is the guy, this is my dad, whatever, You never know what value this thing has in the long term, and you never know where you are on this wave, because you maybe think you're on the up or on the down or in the beginning, but it's like the stock market, everybody's just guessing stuff. And if you try to predict,
Yeah,
like, I need to be more creative or I need to be more structured, nobody knows what you really need to be right now.
yeah, and that curve. What's funny about that curve is it
Hey,
repeats. It's not like it ends. It's like it can come back
yeah,
up. Like, so I mean, that's why like yeah, focusing on trends and things. While it's good to be educated on
yeah,
trends, if you get stuck in this world of like watching trends, then it'll always be ups and downs, right? For me, it goes back to zoom out, zoom way out. What are you trying to do? Trying to make impactful, dynamic things? Are you trying to create emotional connections? Are you trying to make a crap ton of money? I mean, just get to that,
yeah.
and then everything else is superfluous, really. after that. So for me, I mean, at the end of the day, to put it in very simple terms, I just want to make cool stuff, period. I just want to make stuff that like people like, whoa, are like, even if there's a nanosecond of like, oh, that was a cool interaction, or oh, that was easy, that's that's my juice. That's all I'm going
Yeah.
for. I don't even care about, now we're doing this in logo design. Oh, now everyone's using pastel colors. Oh, well now it's all about, using Linktree and apps like this. Or oh, now we don't do email marketing. Now we do email marketing. Facebook sucks, so now it's TikTok. Well, now it's not TikTok. Now it's IGTV. It's all these are all superfluous
Yeah.
things. They're all just it's like at the end of the day, it's making cool stuff and getting it in front of people. That was the goal way back in art school. That was the goal when I was making skateboard decks. That was the goal when I was coloring as a 5-year-old kid. It's so just getting back to that. I think getting right back to what makes this
Yeah.
work.
And I think like that is like the thing, like I said, everybody is like in one corner at one point, and then you're like, oh, I should be more on this and that, and it's kind of like a self-finding thing. But in the end, you just have to be happy where you are right now and just try to make the best out of it, you know? Yeah, but we're already an hour and 12 minutes in. Yeah, what do you think will be the schedule for this podcast if we can't can like plant the seed of coming back and check out the Infinitive Creative podcast?
Wow, we got to work on it.
Got him.
It's the now you're making me say it wrong. It's the Infinite Creative Podcast. So, but yeah, so it's. I think we'll try to do this weekly, right? We're gonna try to just like we used to get coffee once a week back in the day in the cafe. I think we'll try to do this every week. Obviously, this is episode 1. We keep referencing episode 0, which maybe someday will come out. But I think trying to get this in kind of a weekly schedule, I think, will be the biggest thing. And yeah, and so if any of you are watching, I know this first episode will be, for all 5 of you out there watching, if you have any feedback, feel free to shoot us an email or a message and just kind of tell us what you'd like to see,
Yeah.
I'm someone that, and I think Vitsa is the same way, where we don't really shy away from anything.
No.
So if you have something that's kind of, a little crazy, people are maybe a little afraid to talk about, I think that's
Or
cool.
if you do
I'm ready to get
or if you do something creative, like let us check you out and let's see what you do, and we kind of discuss it maybe and review it or give like opinions and thoughts, or admire stuff. I'm down to react to some creative artists and stuff like that, because there's plenty of people out there doing dope stuff. On that note, I also want to mention, please, check us out on Instagram. Apparently, we have that handle, I guess. Or do we? I still have to.
I believe so. Infinite Creative Podcast.
Yeah, so we're going to post a bunch of stories there. And also, we'll check our YouTube out and rate this podcast 5 stars on Spotify. And yeah, let's see what we're coming up with in the next episode, because there's infinite possibilities.
Infinitive.
Yeah, I said it once wrong. Now we'll say it all the time wrong. So Rachel was like, "Is that really the name?" And I'm like, "When Sean says it, it sounds better."
The Infinite Creative Podcast. And with that being said, send anything you want to infinitecreativepodcast@gmail.com. My name is Sean, and so you can always email me as well. Sean, hello@SeanCraigCreative.com. So that's SeanCraig creative.com. So feel free. And other than that, I think as we get through these episodes, we'll probably do a little bit better job of kind of showing work, explaining things.
Structure and topics. It's all it's
right
a process.
Right now, it's a little mysterious. Who are these guys? Do they actually even know creativity? I mean, Fitze has some cool lights in the background. This other guy has a guitar or two in the background. Like, what do these guys do? So I think we'll do that too. I think in later episodes, we'll kind of show some of our work and yeah, maybe even do a little critique or two.
Yeah,
but
that would be nice.
But yeah, I think I'll be working on this logo for this podcast, and I think we'll just keep recording this once a week, and please just let us know you're out there listening. I mean, that means a lot just to even get one like or one comment. Even if it's hate mail, I like it. It's engagement. So go for it. Hate me.
Yeah, we will do our thing. But yeah, on that note, thank you for listening, and see you in another episode.